Welcome to Startup Spokane, where hosts Steve Traben and Megan Halsey explore the excitement and momentum growing throughout Spokane's expanding startup community. Startup Spokane is a joint effort between Greater Spokane Incorporated's Startup Spokane, our friends at Well Dressed Walrus, and Spokane Talks Online. Now, here are your hosts, Steve and Megan.
Welcome to Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Media, your podcast home for everything startup and entrepreneurship related in the Spokane region. As you know, Startup Spokane is a program of Greater Spokane Incorporated, and we're here to provide you with our region story on entrepreneurship and provide you with meaningful information that will help you launch, grow, and operate a very successful business. And I'm really excited today because we're going to have a conversation about what it takes to be a good founder or an entrepreneur. And I have with me Scott Rozic. Scott's a serial entrepreneur that recently came to Spokane with his wife, I think about a year ago, Scott, from Silicon Valley. So welcome. Yeah. And maybe just give our listeners a little background and history on you.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. So I started a business right out of college. I relocated to the Bay Area, built a business for about 10 years in San Francisco. I had absolutely no experience, and so this was my literally introduction to the software industry, was being a founder and CEO. I built a world-class team, awesome board of directors, great band of advisors, shipped a bunch of products, had a great time doing it. Sure, it was totally challenging, but it was really a lot of fun. Sold that to a business in Seattle, so after that I was a public company officer for a couple of years. And since then I've done kind of multiple founder CEO roles. I've also been in support roles as chief marketing officer, helping other businesses and other founders get their businesses not only launched but built over multiple years. And I'm really excited to be here in Spokane. It's a great market, and I think Spokane's really at this ideal juncture time for launching and building great entrepreneurial ventures here.
Yeah, that's great. And we're really fortunate to have you and talent like you that you bring here, having gone through an entire life cycle, from idea to launch to exit, and I'm sure that you learned a lot along the way. You're the perfect person to join us in this conversation today, which I really want to focus on what we call founder development. But I want to give some context. We often refer to this notion of the founder's dilemma or the founder's challenge. And this is this idea or notion that you have an individual that has a great idea, they have tremendous passion, they might have the technology acumen or tech acumen to pull it off, and don't have any of the business skills to make that happen, or vice versa. And we see that all the time in the work that we do. And I should mention, Scott's an entrepreneur in residence with us at Startup Spokane, and he mentors and advises many new founders and entrepreneurs. So I mean, you're very qualified to be in this topic. So your sense of this founder's challenge, I mean, it's real, right? It exists.
Yeah, it does. And it has been interesting doing the entrepreneur in residence work because it's different when you're helping an executive and you're building a business with them versus building your own business versus seeing, a number of kind of entrepreneurs who some are first time, some are going through for maybe their second or third time. There's definitely, we all have our blind spots. I've tended to be a pretty geeky CEO from the beginning of time. I've, coded, I get pretty deep in the weeds on, actually building automations and marketing programs. So I've done everything from managed really large teams to doing one-man armies. So, and really within this program, I've seen people who have extremely strong technical skills and also some really strong business entrepreneurs. But the key is finding what you don't have and then going out and getting people who are way better at each one of those.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to hire coders that are 10x what I am, because that's how I'm going to build a great business and get out of something that in the beginning I might be great at definitional work, but then it's time to bring in somebody who's really strong and solid. And I think, the team building and the individual work that you do. One other thing I'll comment on is that I find some people are more willing to learn the hard stuff than the others. So I really encourage people to learn GitHub, to learn how to do commits, to learn how to manage projects, and not expect that they're going to hire all those skills. But that's unique, and I don't know that everyone needs to do that.
Yeah, so to me, a big part of this whole founder development is really their willingness and ability to be coached and to listen and to listen to the advice and the counsel that are going to come from a lot of different areas, right? They might come from you as an entrepreneur in residence. They might come from a subject matter expert, a lawyer, a marketer, right? An accountant. So this conversation is not about how do you build a business plan, how do you do market research. This is about the entrepreneur's willingness and ability to learn from others and be open. That they don't know everything, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I think what probably all of us learn that have done more than one company is that the faster your own ego leaves the room, the more likely you are to work past some of those issues. So that's hiring people who are better than you are and finding people who greatly complement you, who you're not going to be intimidated by their skill set. And I think that a weaker leader tends to find people who will sit underneath them, but they're not looking for people to really help the company soar.
Yep. No, that makes sense. Let's step back from hiring team. Because when someone has an idea and they are bootstrapping and don't have money, they may not be at a point where they're ready for team. But they're certainly, you kind of get back to, okay, I understand the tech side, but I don't really know anything else. So let's take it back before team, the team that you're hiring, the people that you're surrounding yourself as an entrepreneur. I mean, let's talk about that, because I mean, you do this every day, right?
The coaching and all that piece. So as a first-time founder CEO, I did surround myself with what I called a band of advisors and a formal board. I heavily compensated them with stock in that I wanted these people to be more than pictures on my slide deck. I found people who I really resonated with at a relationship level, who I knew had already done what I was trying to do 5 or 6 times. The other key point I think sometimes entrepreneurs forget, and I try to remind them during the Entrepreneur in Residence, is, look, it's just my input. The entrepreneur is living in this every single day. So you need to, kind of balance that out, and it's the fine line between being a great leader and knowing which direction it leads to the top of the mountain, but then also having your team surrounding you who can provide you with that really great input.
No, that's good. What are some of the attributes that you are looking for when you're working with an entrepreneur that basically validates for you that, hey, this person's open enough and willing to listen to what I have to say, or being willing to pivot, right? Not putting their ego first.
That's right. The first thing I do is just get to know them, get to know their business. I put out a lot of breadcrumbs in those early conversations just to see where they're going to the direction that they're going to head in. I calibrate as we go through the process week over week, and what I try to do is strike pretty early on what I think are the real meaty issues, the ones that typically people don't actually want to get into, right? So
examples.
I call this, leaning into the sharp stick. So let's say you have a formation issue and you think, gee, I've surrounded myself with a handful of co-founders, and then you find out some of those co-founders, really weren't the right people. They didn't have the skill set, or you're in school or you're out of school, and you think, geez, I just need people, right, to surround me because it's going to be hard what I'm doing. So an example of that would be, cleaning that up and making sure that you have your actual team with signed offer letters, and everybody who's made a commitment that's either full-time or part-time is doing the work that they need to be doing. And fixing those either personnel problems, fixing any kind of early business model problems or product problems that you have. So instead of kind of going into an investor pitch thinking, how do I make this thing glossy and perfect so that the investor invests, it's how do I build a great business? And building a great business is going to get you to that outcome of getting the funding that you need, getting the customers that you require. And those are another key group to listen to. And it's so easy to do a Google search, and many of them, and think you figured out your business. But nothing beats going to sit in front of the customers that you're selling to who will listen to you. Pre-product, pre-idea even, to really understand deeply what it is that you need to solve. And then you go about solving that, right?
So let's dig a little deeper into you know, some of these people, I'll speak for myself. I mean, I was an early leader in one of the first companies that I participated in,
Sure.
and I didn't have any experience in leading others, right? So, I mean, that's not just an inherent, you know, that's not just something that you necessarily are born with. So
Yeah.
there must be a lot of education and
There is,
opportunity
yeah.
to teach people how to be an effective leader, right?
Right,
How
that's
to
right.
instill culture, do those
Yeah.
things. So you want to just chat a little bit
Yeah,
about
sure.
that?
I mean, early on when I was building my board, I did try to find a collection of people, again, who had the skill set that I didn't have. And so one of the people I'm looking for in that is a great CEO, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great leaders have a tendency to kind of, without even knowing it, they're just giving you all these subtle cues and tasks and ideas around being a great leader. And then every entrepreneur gets into trouble and comes up with what they think is a great idea, or they run out of money, or they hire the wrong person, or 16 different fires emerge on the horizon. And those are the times when leadership emerge.
Right.
Not when everything's perfect in the very beginning of time, but as those crises emerge, it's how do you lead through those. And so I guess the combination of surrounding yourself with people who you resonate with, who have the prior experience, is extremely helpful. And then, you know, there's just no greater job or more difficult job, in my opinion, than being the founder of a startup. It will push you more than you've ever been pushed in anything that you've done,
Yep.
physically, mentally, or professionally. And so that's where having your team be a real team and not pictures on a presentation is really essential.
Yeah, no, that makes great sense. I mean, because we're all going to stumble or trip,
Exactly.
right? And
Yeah.
we all have, whether we work for a company,
Right.
whether we're starting a company, and these are all, you know, I think about founder development and this
Yeah.
whole conversation as lifelong learning.
That's right.
You know, I'm a middle-aged male guy at, you know, the last third of my career, and I'm still learning things every single day.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
I have a willingness and an openness to that, and I think that it's really important that entrepreneurs in the startup ecosystem have that as well, because
That's right.
you might have the best idea in the world, and you might be solving the world's biggest problem, but if you're not open to
That's right,
advice
exactly.
and counsel and being
Yeah,
willing, I mean,
it-
that can be a problem.
Hugely being open to advice and counsel, but then also having the right people around you who you resonate
Yep.
with. And then I really want to hit on the topic of relationship. Relationship is everything in business, whether it's big business or startups, right? And so not only are you recruiting these people, but you're building relationship, which means when there's a problem, you're picking up the phone and calling them, right?
Yeah.
When you need them, that's the time. Not when you have great news, like, hey, I mean, that is a good time to inform people as well, but you're just really needing to dig in deeper. And relationship forms over a long period of time.
Well, and I tell people all the time, I mean, that's one of my mantras, is that the most important thing in your entire life,
Yeah.
not just with starting a business or working for a company, are the relationships and the network of
That's right.
relationships that you have, because you
Yeah.
don't know when you're going to need to tap into them. But
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
they need to be there.
Yeah.
And those relationships come from a number of different ways. I mean,
Yeah.
they're some by happenstance, some by just pure networking. Some, you know, these relationships can be your customer relationships, your supplier relationships, your
That's right.
your potential team member advisor
Yeah.
relationships, right? So
Yeah.
you can't emphasize enough the
You're totally
importance
right.
of them.
And you never know, right? You never know when that person that you're meeting is your future VP
Exactly.
or a potential customer. And it's not even a selfish, what can I get out of this person? To me, relationship is more, what can I give? And if you give, then you just have a tendency to all of a sudden be surprised by this boomerang that comes back by, yeah, Steve, for some reason, introduced me to this person. I had no idea why, but it's because you have deep relationships,
Yep.
right? And people know you and trust you. And there's just, it's incredibly valuable, right? Even if there's never an economic relationship between us, how can I help you? And
Right.
that base level thinking is absolutely critical for the entrepreneur. Another big thing is that individually, you are under a massive magnifying glass as a founder
Sure.
over time. Now, it's
Sure.
a lot different when your team's 40 people. You know, you're the leader and you're having a bad day, people pick up on that. And so there is a need to kind of manage your own self,
Yep.
which I want to comment on.
Yeah, and let's do this.
yeah.
Let's take a quick break, because we're at
Sure.
that spot, and let's come back and we'll pick up on kind of this particular portion of the
Yeah,
discussion.
and the individual psychology of the founder,
Okay.
I think, is really important.
Very good. So
we'll hit on
stay
that.
with us. We're having a great conversation with Scott Rozic about founders and the development of the softer side of what a founder needs. Stay with us on Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Media. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, I'm weather forecaster and assignment anchor at Spokane Talks Online, Colin Pittman, and I am honored to be the host of the new program, Spokane's Youth Spotlight, brought to you by Spokane Talks Online and the Spokesman Review, where we are interviewing and getting to know outstanding youth in our community each month. If you'd like to nominate someone in our community that you think should be recognized, that is doing something great here in the region or has an amazing story, visit SpokaneTalksOnline.com or Spokesman.com and look under Youth Spotlight to nominate. And be sure to tune in each month as we find the best in the Inland Northwest.
Hi, I'm Larry Myers, owner of River Ridge Hardware. Welcome to our garden center here on the corner of Garland and Driscoll. We have fresh plants that come in weekly from all of our local growers. We can make your garden look like our garden. Here at River Ridge, we've been here 30 years. We're your full-service neighborhood hardware store. This is our sprinkler aisle where my knowledgeable staff will help you put together your sprinkler system so it will make your yard lush green for the spring and summer. This is River Ridge Hardware's rental center, where we provide a multitude of equipment for rent for the do-it-yourselfer. Next time you're working on your home or yard this spring and summer, stop by, say hi, and we'll help you get the project done.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
Welcome back to Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Media. We're having a great conversation with serial entrepreneur and good friend Scott Rozic about what it takes to be a founder, not beyond your business idea, right? I mean, the skills and whatnot. And as we went to break, we were starting to get into kind of the individual, some of the individual attributes around the entrepreneur themselves. I mean, this is hard work to be an entrepreneur, right? I mean, it's not an 8-to-5 job. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it is. It's a big job, and many of us will have another job or other sources of compensation while they're trying to get their business off the ground.
Yeah.
So the only thought I have there is just, really take care of yourself in this process too. Like getting enough sleep means that your cognition works as it should. Yep. We do probably need to put in my opinion, startup early days looks like, 75 to 80 hours. And that's just been me. I early in my existence did more like the 100-hour weeks, and that's great, but you crash and burn. So what I've found from my particular formula is if I'm exercising every day and I'm eating well, then I can do my job. But when I get into these positions where I think I'm being a hero by working, 16 days in a row, and I walk in the office and I'm in a bad mood and I didn't remember something, that's not doing anything for my team or myself.
Exactly.
And I want to hit on that point again of this is probably the hardest job that you'll ever have, because as you pointed out, you have to learn so much when you're on the job while you're doing the things that you know how to do really well, and then you're recruiting the people that you don't have.
And you're learning all these other aspects of the business that you may not have a clue,
Yeah.
how to do marketing, how to do sales, how to do financial, and all of those kinds of things. And, I want to just add in, a lot of people at this point when they're launching, they're bootstrapping, and so they might have a full-time job to help pay for, the bills.
Yeah.
So they really do have to burn the midnight oil, right?
They do,
and it's a struggle to balance. And I think you make a great point about, you do have to take care of yourself. And I find, the time when you exercise is also a great time to organize your thoughts and solve a lot of things in that regard. So
you definitely have to wear a superhero cape, and that's back to maintain your relationships. That includes your spouse, significant other, friends. Humility serves you really well with your advisors and board members, because positioning positivity when there's actual issues is a draining energetic. Just if I'm walking and I'm not revealing what's actually happening, then that also takes energy away from your goal.
And I want to kind of align this with leadership, because, you know, I've learned this notion: you can either pull or you can push. And if you're a good leader and you can pull from others, right? And you know when to tap into other individuals for certain things, you can hopefully spread the wealth out, right? And sort of take a little bit of the burden off of you. So back to this notion of surrounding yourself with great people, whether they are team members that you're either paying with equity or paying with cash, or subject matter experts, you know, in the legal, marketing, and accounting realm, advisors, things like that. All of these relationships that we've talked about are of paramount importance.
And that's where I think in the early days you can't be stingy with stock. You know, the people who surround you that can help you, you want them aligned to this long-term goal, right? You add an investor, that's an 8-year relationship on average. You should be thinking the same way if you're adding an employee, right? And if you're not sure, then wait, because that's something else that's going to take energy and drain you as well.
So let's follow this little path a little bit further, Scott, because a lot of entrepreneurs that I meet are like, "Oh, I don't want to share my company. I'm not quite there yet, right? I mean, it's mine. I love having 100%." But there's something to what you just said, right? I mean, it's okay to share early, because I mean, it's what can actually launch you further ahead in a more accelerated fashion than otherwise, right?
Yeah, I think regions that are not in the Silicon Valley sometimes get confused around we want to be the Silicon Valley. I think the best idea is for regions to excel at what they do best, and then import the things that work the best from the Silicon Valley. So the model that really was nailed there is that the stock works, right? That you, by being generous with the right people, look, these are on vesting schedules, so if you think that you're right and then somebody doesn't work out, you can make that change. But having people aligned to your mission really does work. And you don't have any cash in the beginning, so you can't pay them, but you need the best people. So it's better to find the people who are really strong, properly incentivize them so that, look, they're in the room with you. And then you're hitting on the huge point of, if you're feeling stressed because you're not making forward progress, and it's probably an area that you suck at, then you need to enlist somebody. And when you enlist somebody, you know, be respectful of them. Don't ask them to work for free, because you want them for more than just the project that they're kicking off on. You want them on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, and from a long-term success and outcome standpoint, I mean, that could make it or break it.
That's right. Yeah.
So don't be greedy. Yeah, is sort of the way I look at it.
I always did the aim high, and it seems to kind of work out. Like, if you don't think that you can get somebody, that's probably the person that you should be seeking out.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's good counsel. And the role that your gut plays in life and in entrepreneurship, I think, is a really interesting topic.
Yeah, that's right.
Let me lead off, but I want your impressions as well. Any time in my life that my gut has said to do something and I have not followed it, I look back and say, I should have listened to my gut.
Yeah, I think we've had a few of those together.
So I encourage people all the time to follow your gut. It's actually an important thing. So let's hear your take on this.
The gut is the second brain, but our own intuition, particularly as it gets honed through experience, is the best guide. And cerebrally, we could look at a resume and say this person's perfect on paper. To craft that long-term relationship, the amount of resonance you need with that person is so great that you really need to make sure that the intuitive gut is aligned with that individual or a customer or an investor, because we absolutely know what's correct. And I look, we've all made that same mistake. I've always said this to you repeatedly. Whenever I knew it was the wrong person, I was always right. And then mistakes are expensive because it takes that energy away from you.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow new energy to come in to fill that VP sales position or whatever that position is in your company. So follow it and
then act on it, right? I mean, and act. So like you were just describing a scenario where maybe you make a decision that you're not happy with.
Yeah.
You don't live with it necessarily.
That's
I mean, right? Make a change, pivot, do what you've got to do.
That's right.
This is sort of this fail fast sort of approach to your business, right?
It is. Yeah. Don't apply energy unless you know that the direction is the right direction. And this is something I've been learning working with multiple other entrepreneurs in the entrepreneur in residence role, is that usually your gut instincts on a business are also right. It isn't just the individual. The challenges and the problems are the ones to chase. And then also when you watch and you try to provide the guidance and coaching, on the reverse side as the entrepreneur, you have to, again, recognize, listen, respectfully and thank somebody when you have a disagreement about their advice, because that's where your gut, I mean, ultimately it's your business, right? And you need to live with that long-term decision.
Absolutely.
And you'll see somebody do a quick glance through your deck, tell you how to run your business, and you're thinking, Mr. or Mrs., I respect your opinion, but you need to craft your own way in this world.
So we've only got a couple of minutes left. I think that maybe we should finish by talking about the discipline, the self-discipline required to be a good entrepreneur. Do you want to, does that seem like a good way to
that works.
end it up? And
yeah, I think, on the discipline side, I think all the kind of prior good habits really do tie in. I think you if you're going to do the hardest thing in the world, whether it's training for something physical or in this case it's trying to build a company, you have to learn from the greats. And so what I've tended to do is try not to learn from everybody. I pick the 2 or 3 people that I consider to be, the heroes in a particular segment. I learn everything that I can about them. So, that's a level of discipline where you're not looking to broadly look at entrepreneurship. You're trying to figure out how to become a master in your field.
Yeah.
And you're respecting and kissing the ring of those who have come before. But it's absolutely essential that you do so.
Yeah, and I would just say, along with discipline, for me, comes a lot of the ability to be well organized,
That's right.
I mean, you're going to be, as an entrepreneur, you're going to be dealing with a bunch of incomings across a lot of different areas, whether it's investment or customers or product, and where you are in the development life cycle. Being highly organized and able to deal with it, kind of being able to multitask, I think, is a really important skill in all this as well.
You're right, and you really have to show up, right? If you have a meeting, put all your energy into that meeting. Don't pull your phone out. Respect no matter who that person is sitting across the table. If you're going to actually schedule a time with them, then focus on what's happening there. Schedule shorter meetings, if you need to. I like to do, a 25-minute meeting. And then that allows me to then go focus on something that's code related or something that I can actually do well, instead of trying to have this meeting while I'm doing 6 other things. But discipline's everything, and that ties into not only the habits, but also how you run your business, right? I really encourage entrepreneurs who, I'm not a finance person. It's like, you better become one, because you've got to master cash flow. Even if you farm out the development of a financial model, you have to own it, right?
Exactly.
Every single line on the expense, every single assumption that goes into that revenue model is on you.
Right.
It isn't on the financial advisor, although they could help in the mechanics. Same thing with product, same thing with customers. It's like you have to do, in order to span multiple functional areas, you need to be a master of discipline in every regard.
And this is where you can tap into others' expertise as well. And Scott, I mean, this is a fantastic conversation. We've covered a lot of ground, and we could probably spend hours talking more about this. I think for those of you that are interested in more assistance in your idea, taking it to launch or growth, we'd like to encourage you to visit startupspokane.com, where we can offer you a tremendous amount of service and assistance to help you be a strong entrepreneur for your future or current business. It's about all the time we have today. I want to thank Scott Rozic again for joining us on this great conversation. Come back and join us for future pod and broadcasts where we highlight the entrepreneurial ecosystem of the Spokane region. Thanks again for joining us today on Startup Spokane on Spokane Talks Media.
Thanks, Dave.
Startup Spokane is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is a joint effort between GSI's Startup Spokane, Well Dressed Walrus, and Spokane Talks Online. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. We wish you a great and profitable day.